Hello everyone, welcome to the next vlog. I've planned to talk about this for a while, and indeed I've had a variety of different vlog ideas. However, this one takes precedence because it's something that's been on my mind, and it's actually the cause for why I've not actually been doing as many vlogs recently. Today's topic is animality, or accepting one's animality, being an animal. You might hear my voice is a little bit clogged up. I suffer from hay fever quite a lot, quite often in fact, quite severely. And unfortunately I've not really been out, out in the woods at all, really out in nature at all for the past 2 weeks or so. That's obviously compounded by doing a lot of work as well, but to start off with, I hate to suggest that having a problem like hay fever is so severe and that I need to complain about it. I would feel bad about complaining about hay fever, but it's tied up with an unfortunate realization. The very fact that nature itself is causing me to react in such a way to this allergic reaction. It's quite frustrating. In fact, some people might think that hay fever is it's just a seasonal a seasonal disorder. You'll sneeze a bit, your eyes will run for a couple of weeks or maybe a month or two in the summertime. But it's not just that. It can be quite frustrating and quite debilitating, in fact. But it's not just that. It's, for me at least, it's the complexity of finding meaning and value in nature. It's what I care for the most in many ways, because we are part of nature, of course. But it's just a simple fact. It's how we can take how we can be so affected by something as simple as pollen. It's actually difficult to speak right now. And that's a troubling fact. Although I've had hay fever for most of my adult life, I believe, I've never really given it as much thought as I have now. It reminds me of several things. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is one of them. Some of you might be aware. I can't remember off the top of my head what those the different needs are, but the very base level, I believe, is just basic biological functions. It's hard to care about art and beauty and all these abstract concepts, of course, when we're struggling just to see or just to hear, when we're struggling to just be human. And I have to say, it's not just hay fever. I mentioned in a previous vlog about disability and appreciation of what we have. Well, I suffer from a variety of ear issues, quite severe ear issues. In fact, I can barely hear in my left ear, and my right ear seems to be going as well. And for the past maybe 3 weeks or so, I haven't really been able to hear much at all, which means I can't engage with music, films, games. I had a list of things to engage with, but I can't really unless I struggle through it, and it'd be quite uncomfortable. But again, I'm aware that these issues they're not, I don't have cancer, I don't have a serious chronic illness, but I'm just aware that there are these things that bring you, I have to say, and this is what's going to be the main crux of this video, they bring you down to the human level. The very fact that I can't just engage with the things that I love most because I'm human and I have these issues seems very strange when I'm also supposed to be someone that values the human, the animal, the human as the animal. I'm very much against notions of transcendence and transhumanism. I use Patrick Curry a lot, but I have to say again, I'm a fan of his work, and when he specifically talks about transhumanism, he talks about I believe it's something like the reductio ad absurdum of the fearing, loathing of the natural world that is the desire to transcend from the human. I struggle with that though, because it gets into a lot of issues that I had, I believe in 2021 or so, where I'd started to become less and less. I started to accept less and less being human, being just another animal, and I felt, and I've written about this in various places, but I felt, why not look to something more? Why not? Why wouldn't it be better to be almost an untethered, disembodied, even creative spirit, where you don't have to suffer from these trivial ear and eye and nose problems and whatever it may be, or even more serious problems than that. Although I do appreciate the fact that we are all humans and we die and decay and whatnot. Why do we need to fully accept it? I struggle to fully accept it, because isn't it better to be improved in some way? Improved by technology? I don't know, it's a tricky thing, because that's actually something I almost entirely disagree with. There are people like for example, Don Elgin and Joseph Meeker, they talk about the comedy of survival and the comedy of fantastic. And they write about how comedy is more valuable and adaptive and worthwhile and fundamentally affirming, because it's against the comedic mode is against the tragic mode. The tragic mode is seeing everything through suffering and seeing everything as something to be surpassed and transcended, and it's a lot more complicated than that. But that's the gist of it. Whereas the comic mode is all about adaptation, survival, just being another animal within a realm of other animals, other beings. It doesn't view things through the lens of abstraction. It's all about seeing humans not as noble but as fundamentally flawed, and I believe it's Elgin who says that humans are lecherous and bumbling, but they're also more. I suppose it's connective. I think that's what it is. It's connective. Humans are the comedic mode sees things through shared connections, as opposed to the human anthropocentric desire to transcend. I am writing about that currently in various places in my thesis, and I do value the comedic mode, but again, I have to say, I do kind of chafe at this. I chafe at limits, and it's strange, because my entire thesis is about accepting limits. But I have to say, and this is where it's a little bit frustrating, I'm writing a thesis about accepting limits, whilst also almost daily thinking about, why do we need to accept death? Why do we need to accept decay? Obviously, it's the only thing you can do, and you have to accept it in order to be sane, I suppose. But I think what I'm trying to get at is there's a certain circle of people, or scholars and schools of thought that I'm aware of, that I've myself have studied, that I feel like they fall too much into this idea of we need to accept the animal, becoming an animal. Is one of the books I was reading excerpts from. I used to always think of myself as someone who scorned pretension, like Diogenes, being an animal, being shirking all these different high ideas and whatnot, and just being an animal purely. But why? It's frustrating. We are, and we have to be, but why at the same time? Because just the very fact that I'm some little mechanism in my ear makes me incapable of listening to music. One of the very things that gives me most joy, most pleasure, music, where I will cry at music quite often. In fact, being rather emotional most of the time, I can't do that because of some relatively trivial ear problem. Trivial in the sense of it's just this thing that's happened in my body that's now stopping me from listening to music. And it's also I guess you could say, for glasses as well. I'm a glasses wearer, It's also the fact that you can't really see properly, you can't view the world as it could be viewed unless you're wearing a contraption on your face. It's all these little things, and again, these are relatively small issues to have, but again, it's a frustrating thing to be in. It's almost like two minds. Humans are capable of holding different views and perceptions, of course, but more and more I find myself almost going back to more into the mindset of 2021. I have to say, I have to isolate that and pinpoint that year as being more less attached to the human. If that makes sense. For example, I wrote a short story, one of the only short stories that I've got out, which I'm not too happy about. But it's because it's a story that deals with transcending the human and escaping the body, and escaping out into the universe. And I wrote that, as you can imagine, I wrote that at a time when I was dealing with a variety of ailments, some of which I still have. And also, it's also the reason why that's part of the reason why I started believing in a god or some form of divinity, or nowadays it's more falls in line with agnosticism. It was a distinct creator, then it went to pantheism. Now it's just a plain old agnosticism from atheism in the past. I've talked about that before. But it's all these things where I'm almost suspicious of a certain mindset that's often talked about. It's often pushed. It's often pushed in certain groups that I'm aware of, about entirely accepting the human body and all the flaws that we have and things like this. I don't know. It's just strange. Obviously, one of the things that the thing that gives me most value and enjoyment and meaning in life is nature, and the very fact that nature itself is causing some issues. And as I say that, I'm reminded that I meant to discuss something in regards to abstraction. I'm aware that I view nature largely in terms of abstractions, and obviously I just talked about the comic ecological perspective, where that's perhaps not the best thing to do. I don't think I see it in a tragic sense. I just think it gives me meaning, and a kind of qualified romanticism. There are whole lots of issues with romanticism, of course, and that's something I'm talking about in my thesis, but I tend to view nature as something out there, abstract, something higher. And I think that's why I'm able to write about it. Writing about nature often from my own experiences of it, and also from stories and of other authors and things like this, often makes me quite emotional. But it seems to be split. There seems to be a split there from my struggles currently with health issues and this outward abstraction of nature, where I'll do anything of it. How to put this into words? Where what I always think about and always write about is conserving nature, doing anything possible to protect it, valuing other agencies in the world, other animals, things like this. All of these ideas that I've talked about on the channel, and I've also obviously put into my writings and whatnot, they're all distinct in a way. They're all distinct because they are, on the one hand, I'm struggling as an animal in nature. Then I'm also trying to put it on a pedestal, if that makes any sense. But the issue is that I feel like these people that I mentioned before, who talk about the animal and being an animal, accepting death, accepting decay and all, and these other issues, I feel like they have to also do that. I think that's one of the main issues I've thought about for the past several years now. I think people have to see nature as something, in the romanticist view of the world, as something other, something transcendent in a way, something glorious and worth protecting. Obviously, it's worth protecting for its own sake, but there are all these different caveats and things that I'm thinking about right now. But I feel like these people have to do that, because otherwise, what is there? Otherwise, otherwise, it's nature red in tooth and claw, for the most part, isn't it? I think it is. Obviously, there is cooperation and symbiosis in nature, but I feel like if I just dwelt on nature red in tooth and claw, I wouldn't view nature as highly. It's mostly the beautiful aspects of nature. No, it's not. It's actually not. It's difficult to describe. I did my dissertation on carrion beetles. As you can tell, there are all these different contradictory trains of thought in my mind at the moment. But I don't know. I feel like you have to, in some way, see nature as something higher, which is contradictory because it's supposed to be around us and within us, and we are nature, we are animals. But because there are all these different scholars that talk about embodiment and embeddedness and phenomenology and the spirit and the flesh and things like this, spirit within the flesh. But I struggle with that. I struggle to fully get on board with what I can't remember the name. It's people like Curry, Washington, Sean Kane, Morley Pontu, I think it is. Apologies for pronouncing the name wrong. French author, I believe. Various people that I'm aware of that I've been reading, but slowly more and more reading about. David Abrams, people like this, Spell of the Sensuous, all these different authors and thinkers. But I am aware that I struggle to get fully on board with this, because these types of ideas, because again, it's not. You can't. I don't think you can fully accept being an animal, because being an animal causes problems with the body, stops you from just enjoying things that gives you meaning in life. How is that? How can you accept that? It actually makes me quite angry to think about it, which is frustrating. Yes, the stag in the background is wonderful and has its own intrinsic meaning and value. We should protect animals, other animals. Beautiful, mysterious, full of wonder. But it's also terrified of predators. It also has to sleep in the cold. It's often shot by gamekeepers and whatnot. Just a variety of associations coming to the mind right now. Disease, so that's a big one. Yes, I'm aware that I'm talking about issues that I discussed in vlogs quite a while ago. I believe my very first vlog covered these types of topics. My relationship with nature and the outdoors. I believe that's what the video was called. So yes, I've had a variety of ideas for videos and vlogs and all different types of projects, but I have to admit I've not really been feeling up to it recently. Hopefully you found that video interesting. Thanks for watching, everyone. Till next time.